Welcome back to another weekly analysis video. This analysis is for the week of November 23rd, 2025. As always, we'll start off with a weekly review of last week's price action and then move into the analysis for next week. As a reminder, next week is Thanksgiving for the United States, so it will be most likely holiday volume for the type of trading we'll see in the next week. Not expecting a whole lot of action. Now, let's go ahead and review what happened last week. So I had mentioned in my analysis video that I didn't expect a whole lot to happen. I wanted to see, not necessarily wanted to see, but I thought price would consolidate into here. And I gave you parameters of which we could see movement outside of this consolidation area if we were to see it below or above. In this instance, it went below. I had said if it had gone below this area and had a nice down close, which it did here, we would then trade lower at that point, which we did. Or had we gotten above here and had a nice up close, I would have expected this high to be targeted. So I was waiting for more information. Okay? Now, my concern was that because we came back up into here already and it then repriced lower into this area in here, my concern was that it was wanting to reach lower. However, I'm keeping mind of the main bias that's in place here, which has been higher prices throughout the entire year. I am now going to say that this is an intermediate term top and that this should stay in place for some time. So that I will discuss that more into the analysis of next week, but I do believe that this is an intermediate term top. May turn into a long-term top. We'll see. Now that we're starting to break down below here with aggression, and it's created an outside day relative to this candle here, and we'll discuss that more into the analysis for next week. But we did not consolidate like I thought we would for the most part. Instead, it broke down below here. Again, I gave parameters as to if it were to break down below 24,786 and have a down close, we would then seek lower prices. These lows, this low, and into here. So that's what I was looking for if that occurred. So let's go ahead and move on into the hourly chart. Alright, on to our hourly chart now. I want to draw your attention here from this low up until this high here. Notice how we got that down close below 24,786 and into the relative stop run area of 24,057. And then we rallied. Okay, now once we see that down close, that gives us the green light for price to say we're going to go lower now. We're going to seek lower prices. Any move up after that down close, to me, is considered a buying opportunity. So where is it going to retrace? It's going to retrace into a premium, which is here. That area, that very area which I was wanting to see consolidation in, we got a move out of it. Okay, which was here with that down close. Price rallied back up into that, used it as a premium to reprice lower into 24,057. Okay, this was the main trade of the week, was right in here. Price comes to a premium, reprices lower, and now it'll probably it might want to close in some of this range. I would prefer to see this open. That's just me. It can close some of it in, but I'd prefer to see it open and then continue to seek lower prices. But we'll discuss more into that for the analysis for next week. Alright, on to our 15-minute chart now, a bit more refined view. We discussed the trade that occurred within the premium on Thursday, distributing out of that area and into 24,057. Let's go back to this area in here where we had a close below 24,786. The reason why that was important was because when we got the close on that particular day, which was Tuesday, it reached into this area in here. Now that area in here is the stop run area relative to the 24,057 level. So if it's going to wander into here, okay, that means now we have to consider the possibility of it keying off that level. Not to mention the context of what we see in the past, where prices now is trying to attempt to move through, and in this case below the stop run area of the 26,244 level. Okay, once we see this, my brain immediately goes to, okay, it's keying off of this level. So any move higher is seen as a retracement into a premium to go lower. And that's what happened here. So that's why it was important that we got that nice down close below 24,786. That was the real green light as to, all right, we're going to seek lower prices. Any move higher should be seen as an opportunity to sell. And that's exactly what happened here. I wasn't, and to be honest, I was not really expecting a whole lot to happen this week. I was just expecting to see price really bang around in here and have trades within this range in here. It didn't do that. Now, when we go into the analysis for next week, we'll discuss this area in here, how it formed that, what I believe now to be an intermediate to long-term top, came through this area in here, came back through, one time touched it, went back, came back to it again. This was in reality potentially the green light to say, you know what, lower prices should be seen, because it attempted to come back through this area in here and it failed, and it moved into its relative stop run area in there. But because we had been moving higher all year, I did not want to let this top go, as in I wanted to see new all-time highs again. And so I was waiting for more information, and I believe now we have enough information to conclude that this is in fact an intermediate to long-term top. And now we'll discuss that more going into the weekly analysis for next week, the week of November 23rd, 2025, Thanksgiving week. Alright, so here we are, back on our daily chart for the weekly analysis for the week of November 23rd, 2025. So again, we're going to go back to this high. I do believe that this is now an intermediate term to potentially a longer term high that'll be in place for a little bit, as we have broken down through this stop run area in here. It did not consolidate like I wanted it to do. I thought it would consolidate going into the remainder of the year perhaps. Again, I gave parameters as to if it were to break above here, we should seek higher prices, and if we were to break below here, we would seek lower prices, and it's wanting to seek the downside. So notice here how he really broke down on Thursday in here and created an outside day. An outside day meaning that it neutralized the high and the low of the previous day's price action. So this is going to be a strong barrier for price to get through when you see days like that, okay? Notice how price wicked back up into that and came off of that, okay? So I'm expecting lower prices. Now, I don't expect a what ICT would call as a low resistance liquidity run, where it just completely runs lower and train wrecks lower. You know, I'm not really expecting that, because I'm weighing out the end of the year volume, and usually when it goes into the end of the year, like we are going into now, the volume decreases, and therefore the type of price action that you see is very just slow, very high resistance, okay? However, there are other things on my mind that are weighing on why we could potentially see low resistance. Even though that's typically not a signature this time of year, it could be seen because of the premium that we're at, the levels that we're at. And the levels that we're at can call for very large ranges. Okay, so from where it's hit now, it could reach down into 19,683. It could have quite a deep retracement relative to the run higher it's had this year. So I'm weighing things out. I'm seeing how price is behaving, and it is behaving bearishly now. Okay, now just a near-term objective. I'd like to see it come to this area in here, which is a stop run area of the 24,057 level. Okay, that's the stop run area there. Ultimately, really run into the middle of this range and here take out these lows. However, is that probably going to happen during Thanksgiving week, where the volume is some of the lowest of the year? Most likely not, but it's something we have to keep in mind. But as of now, I am expecting lower prices because this seems to be an intermediate term to longer term high. I'm expecting lower prices, not because this is a top. I do not believe we're done going higher. This will be revisited at a later time. So just remember that on November 22nd, 2025, I've stated that this will be revisited at a later time, just not now. Okay, so we're now heading into a retracement and going to come back into some of this range that we've created this year from April up until late October. So that's the business. Alright, so into our hourly chart now. Obviously, we see a more refined view. We're going to draw your attention into the Thursday's price action where we expanded lower. We have this gap that could close some of it in. I don't want to see that. I actually just want to see price find resistance in here and move lower into our next objective, which would be in this area here of 23,571 and 23,814. If we come back up into here, I don't want to see it go any higher than 24,786. And then I want it to repel away into this area in here. And we'll see if we can get a run into here. But again, we're going into the week of Thanksgiving for the United States. I'm not expecting a whole lot. I'm just not. In previous years of my career, Thanksgiving week it doesn't really do a whole lot. It's just the volume isn't there. It's very thin, and so you tend to have these high resistance runs. However, I do have a bias towards lower prices now because of the aforementioned intermediate term / longer term high that has been put in place in late October. So that's what I'm expecting, lower prices into here. This would actually be a good objective for the week because, again, not a lot of volume, holiday volume, thin liquidity, not conducive for high probability. Just keep that in mind for the week of Thanksgiving. Alright, now into our 15-minute chart here. Let's go ahead and draw your attention into here, this area of price. Notice how it's come off of the premium of this area in here, 24,543, repelled away. I'd like to see it find resistance in the middle of here and then attempt to make another move lower through these lows and into here, seeing if we can spread our wings into here. This is very optimistic because, again, we're going into Thanksgiving week for the United States. It's low volume, not the highest probability conditions that you could have. However, what we're seeing, because we've had nice runs lower, we may see the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm open to that. It's just that in previous years, generally, I have seen that you do not get that type of volatility during a holiday week like Thanksgiving. So again, I'd like to see it find resistance in here in the middle of this range and then make a move lower. going no higher if it decides to go higher than 24,786, repelling away from that, and then making new lows relative to these lows here. Okay? So that's what I'm looking for going into next week. Not a whole lot of expectations, but I do not believe that we will be in consolidation. I do believe that price will have a more slightly bearish hand at play now, since we have put in that intermediate term high back in October, and so this is what I'm looking for. So what would change that? Well, let's head on back over to the daily chart, and I will show you what would change that. So if we head on back over to our daily chart in here, what would change the bearish tone of what we're seeing right now? And again, it's not bearish as in this is put in a top, we're going lower for the remainder of our days. No, this will be revisited. The bearish tone, meaning the retracement, price coming back within the overall range it's created for the year. Okay. What would change that is if we get above the middle of the stop run area we just left, and I thought we would consolidate in. Okay. If we get above this high here, essentially, I do believe that higher prices will start to be sought after again, and that we'll have to change our bias. But for now, I'm looking for bearishness because of all the things that I've just mentioned. And so with that being said, this is going to conclude the weekly analysis for the week of November 23rd, 2025. As always, take care, God bless, and happy Thanksgiving.